Oh, come on, guys, just stop it. Just the Palestine, get off Israel. Israel is get off Palestine, please. Jews, can you please calm down? Please calm down. Arabs, I swear, okay, we are not going to do the partition. Just please calm down. Stop writing. Just, oh my God, just please. God damn it, guys, I've had it. UN, they're your problem now. Okay, UN, this is a very complex problem with decades of failed policies that has only made matters worse. If I want to fix this, I need to come up with something new that has not been tried before. Trying to partition the country has only led to more chaos and violence, so I need to be smart. That's it! I'll just partition the country. Palestinians, who are almost 70% of the population, will get 40% of the land, and Jews, who are around 30%, will get 60%, while Jerusalem remains an international zone. What could possibly go wrong? The disproportionate distribution of land given to Jews was very likely an attempt to make up for the horrors of the Holocaust. Horrors committed by Europeans, but now paid for by the Palestinian Arabs. The UN resolution confirmed what Palestinians had been fearing for decades, and the entire Arab world rejected the partition. Angry Palestinians attacked 2 buses with Jewish passengers the very next day, killing 7 people. Skirmishes and clashes between the Jews and Palestinians began, and the situation escalated into an unequal confrontation. Zionist forces were organized, armed and trained, while Palestinians had been exhausted after 30 years of British suppression. The Haganah began a campaign of intimidation. They attacked the defenseless village of Deir Yassin at night and fired at people at random who stepped out of their house and then left. That attack went well. Let's now try to hit Kisas, Naima and Jahula at the same time. No, it's too early for an operation that size. Let's just wait some more. Yeah, I guess you're right. Wait, weren't there 3 of us before we zoomed in? A commander of the Palmach attacked the village of Kisas on December 18 without authorization. His troops began blowing up houses at random in the dead of night while the occupants were sleeping inside, killing 15 villagers, including 5 children. When the American press demanded an explanation to the Haganah, Ben-Gurion himself publicly apologized and claimed that the attack had been unauthorized. However, the attack was later included in a list of successful operations. This would be a common tactic by the Zionist soldiers. They would attack without official military authorization, and after the success of an operation, they were retroactively given that authorization. The attack of Kisas proved to the Zionists that they were able to effectively demolish houses and expel Arabs from their villages. In Haifa, the Jewish settlers had built their houses higher up the mountains than the Arabs, and after the UN resolution, they had begun terrorizing the Palestinians. They shelled and sniped them. They rolled down barrels with explosive and huge steel balls into Arab residential areas. They even poured oil mixed with fuel down the roads and then ignited it. When Palestinians left their homes to extinguish the flames, the Jewish settlers machine-gunned them down. The Zionist High Command selected the village of Balad al-Shaikh to test the British commitment to upholding peace in the mandate. The local commander was ordered to encircle the village, kill the largest possible number of men, damage property, but refrain from killing women and children. On December 31st, they attacked for 3 hours, leaving 60 Palestinian men dead. At the same time, the Zionists went into the Arab neighborhood of Wadi Rushmiya, expelled its people, and blew up their houses. 2 weeks later, they destroyed the neighborhood of Hawassa. During this time, Palestinians would also raid Jewish settlements, but their strong defenses meant that the most effective Palestinian tactic would be to isolate them and ambush their supply lines. Many Jews would die in convoys attempting to bring in much-needed supplies. This video would not have been possible without ground news. They're an app and website that gathers related articles from more than 50,000 global sources in one place, so you can compare how different news outlets report on the same story. Each story comes with a clear breakdown of the political bias, factuality, and ownership of the reporting sources, all backed by ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organizations. For example, let's take a look at the story on Israel releasing dozens of Palestinians that were detained in Gaza. Ground News found 143 sources covering this, of which 43% lean left, while only 23% lean right. This shows us how important it is to diversify where you get your news from so you don't miss out on important stories like this one. You also get insight on how credible each news source is and even who funds them. As you can see, 57% of these reporting outlets are considered highly factual. And comparing highly factual sources, I found this left-leaning outlet based in Australia, focusing on the Al-Shifa hospital director who says he was subjected to psychological and physical torture, while the right-leaning Jewish press emphasizes the demand for the Shin Bet chief's head for releasing the hostage's warden. But what I like the most about Ground News is their international blind spot feed, which surfaces news disproportionately covered by one side of the political spectrum. It's a great way to discover stories that you might be missing and even challenge your worldview. As someone interested in the complexities of the Israel-Gaza conflict, Ground News helps me cut through the noise by providing detailed reporting from diverse sources essential for me to understand such a nuanced issue. You can sign up now using the link in the description, ground.news/things I care about, or scan my QR code. Not only will you get 40% off the Unlimited Access Vantage plan, but you will also be supporting my channel. Now let's get back to the video. Help! It is chaos out there! People are killing each other! No habla inglés. What? Why are you speaking in Spanish? You're British! Lo siento, yo no entiende. Come on, you Brits are still in charge. It is your duty to maintain order here. ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? Are you seriously going to ignore this? Estoy embarazada de tu hermana. Clearly, the British would not intervene. So the Irgun and Lehi ramped up their terror attacks. They detonated a bomb in the local National Committee in Jaffa, killing 26 people. They then bombed the Semiramis Hotel in Jerusalem, killing several people, including the Spanish consul. In February, the Haganah deployed soldiers disguised as Arab civilians and brought cars filled with explosives into Palestinian garages to be repaired, only to detonate them later. These attacks put an end to decades of cooperation between Palestinian and Jewish workers, especially inside the Iraqi Petroleum Company. Arab workers had attacked some of their Jewish co-workers, to which the Irgun responded by throwing a bomb into the crowd as they waited to enter the factory. The Palestinians then retaliated and killed 39 Jewish workers in one of the worst Arab attacks. By the end of January, 400 Jews and 1,500 Palestinians had died. Ben-Gurion publicly called the dead Jews victims of a second Holocaust and used this as an excuse to purchase more powerful weapons of war, including the very first flamethrower. On December 31st, Ben-Gurion had invited the Jewish leadership to meet at his house and discuss plans to finally establish the dream of a greater Israel. The protocols of this meeting were recorded and kept by the Haganah. Is it not now the time to get rid of the Arabs? Why continue to keep in our midst those thorns at a time when they pose a danger to us? Weitz had already been working on the Zionist plans to expel Palestinians for decades. In the early 1940s, he wrote, "Transfer does not serve only one aim, to reduce the Arab population. It also serves a second purpose, by no means less important, which is to evict land now cultivated by Arabs and to free it for Jewish settlement. The only solution is to transfer the Arabs from here to neighboring countries. Not a single village or single tribe must be let off." This long seminar was a turning point in Jewish policy. Even the most moderate Zionists now had agreed that the time was right to cleanse the land of the Palestinians. Some members worried that the current policy of retaliation would not allow them to take over all of Palestine because many villages were too peaceful and could not be retaliated upon. But Ben-Gurion stressed that there was no need anymore to distinguish between the innocent and the guilty. The time had come for inflicting collateral damage. Every attack has to end with occupation, destruction, and expulsion. In February, volunteers crossed into Palestine from neighboring Arab countries and formed the Arab Liberation Army. These soldiers were mostly poorly trained and armed, and mostly stayed within Palestinian territory to protect Arab villages, but in some occasions did attack Jewish settlements. The Jewish leadership decided that the time had come to begin cleansing villages of Palestinians. On February 15, they went to Gisaria, demolished its houses, and expelled its population. The Arab villages were so defenseless that they were able to expel another 4 villages that same day. The Palmach then moved on Sasa, instructed to kill as many people and destroy as many houses as possible. Moshe Kalman, deputy commander of the 3rd Battalion of the Palmach, recalled the events. The large unit of Jewish troops encountered no resistance from the residents as they entered the village and began attaching TNT to the houses. We ran into an Arab guard. He was so surprised that he did not ask, "Who is it?" but "What is it?" One of our troops who knew Arabic responded humorously, "This is fire," and shot a volley into him. Kalman's troops took the main street of the village and systematically blew up one house after another while families were still sleeping inside. We left behind 35 demolished houses and 60 to 80 dead bodies. The British helped transfer 2 wounded soldiers hurt by debris to the hospital, but did nothing to help the injured Arabs. The long seminar participants met again 4 days after the attack, and Ben-Gurion recorded the conversations in his diary. Josh Palmon and Ezra Danin believed that Palestinian villagers showed no wish to fight, and that the Arab Liberation Army was confining its activities to the areas that the United Nations had designated to become part of a future Palestinian state. Ben-Gurion spoke bluntly. A small reaction to Arab hostility does not impress anyone. A destroyed house, nothing. Destroy a neighborhood, and you begin to make an impression. He liked the Sasa operation for the way it had caused the Arabs to flee. The last British High Commissioner noticed the shift in the Haganah's policy and appealed to Ben-Gurion, saying that he believed that the Haganah was doing all it could to escalate the situation, while the Palestinians were trying to maintain calm in the country. Ben-Gurion agreed, as he told the Jewish Agency executive shortly after this meeting. "I believe the majority of the Palestinian masses accept the partition as a fait accompli and do not believe it possible to overcome or reject it. The decisive majority of them do not want to fight." In March, the Arab Liberation Army had some minor success as they struck back several times and managed to hold on to some villages. But with over 30 villages already cleansed of the Palestinian population, the Jewish leadership finally felt ready to implement Plan Dalet. This plan contained details on the operation to be carried out to accomplish Ben-Gurion's geographical goals of the future Jewish state. And it also determined the fate of the 1 million Palestinians living within that space. These operations can be carried out in the following manner: either by destroying villages, by setting fire to them, by blowing them up, and by planting mines in their debris. And especially those population centers that are difficult to control continuously. Or by mounting combing and control operations according to the following guidelines: encirclement of the villages, conducting a search inside them. In case of resistance, the armed forces must be wiped out and the population expelled outside the borders of the state. But since occupation would always provoke some sort of Arab resistance, Plan Dalet ensured that every single village would become a valid target for destruction and expulsion. Similar instructions were given to cleanse Palestine's urban centers. The orders given to Haganah commanders were hauntingly specific. Each brigade commander received a list of the villages or neighborhoods that had to be occupied, destroyed, or expelled with exact dates. The first implementation of Plan Dalet was Operation Nachschon on the very first day of April. The consultancy gave clear orders. The principal objective of the operation is the destruction of Arab villages and the eviction of the villagers so that they would become an economic liability for the general Arab forces. Operation Nachschon was also the first operation in which all the Jewish military organizations worked together as a single army, forming the basis of the future Israeli Defense Forces. On April 9th, the Jewish forces defeated the Arabic defenders and occupied villages in the Great Jerusalem area, expelling their inhabitants and demolishing their homes. That same day, Jewish troops entered the village of Deir Yassin. This village had signed an agreement with the Haganah and was supposed to be spared. To absolve themselves from accountability, the Zionists sent the Irgun and Lehi to cleanse the village. Soldiers sprayed the houses with machine gun fire, indiscriminately killing its inhabitants. The survivors were then gathered and murdered in cold blood. A survivor, Fahim Saidan, who was 12 years old at the time, recalled what he saw. They took us out one after the other, shot an old man, and when one of his daughters cried, she was shot too. Then they called my brother Mohammed and shot him in front of us, and when my mother yelled, bending over him, carrying my little sister Hudra in her hands, still breastfeeding her, they shot her too. Zaidan himself was shot. While standing in a row of children, the Jewish soldiers had lined up against a wall, which they had then sprayed with bullets, just for the fun of it, before they left. He was lucky to survive his wounds. A common tactic by the Zionists was to label all enemy civilians as combatants, making massacres and battles hard to distinguish. 30 dead babies in Deir Yassin were initially labeled as killed in combat. The Jewish leadership proudly publicized the high number of victims of Deir Yassin as a warning to any Palestinian who would refuse to abandon their homes and flee. After Deir Yassin, the Haganah cleansed and destroyed the villages of Kalunia, Saris, Beit Surik, and Bidu, taking only about an hour in each village. With the success of Operation Nachschon, they turned their attention to the major urban centers of Palestine. After expelling the Palestinians from Tiberias, they went after the major port city of Haifa and its 75,000 Palestinian inhabitants. The British informed the Arab authorities that they would not protect them and that they should abandon the city. The Arab leadership responded that they would comply and leave the city in an organized manner. But that would not be. Jews on loudspeakers urged Palestinians to leave before it was too late. Mordecai Maklef, a leader of the Haganah who was in charge of the operation, gave simple orders to his men: kill any Arab you encounter, torch all inflammable objects, and force doors open with explosives. Terrorized Palestinians ran from their homes without even packing their belongings. They rushed towards the port, hoping to find a ship to take them away from the city. The Arab community's leadership tried to organize an orderly evacuation, but the Haganah stationed mortars on the mountains overlooking the market and port where the Arabs were gathering. And to ensure no one would have second thoughts about leaving, they opened fire on the crowd. Sniper and mortar fire rained down on the panicked crowd as they stormed boats to flee Haifa. Recollections from survivors are horrifying. Men stepped on their friends and women on their children as boats overcrowded to the point that many turned over and sank with all their passengers. As soon as the Palestinians had fled, Jewish troops broke into their homes and looted them. When a senior Zionist leader visited Haifa a few days later, she expressed horror when entering homes and seeing cooked food on the tables, children's toys and books still on the floor. Similar attacks occurred around the greater Jerusalem area, and while Palestinians, with help from volunteer fighters from Jordan, managed to defend Safar, over 30 villages were completely wiped of their population by May. Next came Acre on May 6th. The Haganah poisoned the city's water supply with typhoid germ and sieged it with mortar fire. The sickness alone caused at least 70 deaths. And the Zionists shouted at them from loudspeakers, "Surrender or commit suicide. We will destroy you to the last man." Lieutenant Petit, a French UN observer, reported that after the city fell, there was widespread and systematic looting by the army of furniture, clothes, and anything that may be useful to the new Jewish immigrants and that may discourage the refugees' return. The Haganah also attempted to poison water wells in Gaza, but were caught by Egyptians. The city of Baisan was determined to defend itself, but only had 2 cannons from World War I that had been brought by the volunteer army. Unable to fight, most of the inhabitants fled to Jordan to live in makeshift camps. Jaffa fell after several weeks of siege by 5,000 Irgun and Haganah troops. It was defended by 1,500 volunteers, including many Bosnians, Christians, and even Templars. Despite a valiant fight, on May 13th, its 50,000 inhabitants were violently expelled, reminiscing what happened at Haifa. Jewish forces now successfully occupied and emptied almost every major city and town in Palestine. The majority of Palestinians would never see their homes again. Joseph Weitz wrote, "Our army marches forward and conquers Arab villages, and their inhabitants flee like mice." On May 14, 1948, one day before the British were set to leave Palestine, David Ben-Gurion declared the establishment of the State of Israel and became its first prime minister. By this point, Israel had conquered territory well beyond what was given to them by the United Nations, and had ethnically cleansed over 250,000 Palestinians from their lands. Just a few days later, the Arab League sent an army into Palestine to attack Israel. However, this ragtag army was badly coordinated, trained, and armed, and was even outnumbered by Israel's armed forces. While some of the Arab forces succeeded in taking some Jewish settlements, their advance was limited. Most of the Jewish casualties came from the siege of Jerusalem, which the Israelis desperately tried to break, taking over 1,000 casualties. But as the Israel main army faced the Arab army, the cleansing operation continued. Within a day of Israel's proclamation, the Zionists completely cleansed the Western Galilee, which was Arab territory of all its Arab inhabitants. Villages that resisted the expulsion were turned into examples, as happened to Bassa, where Zionists lined up as many military-aged men as they could and executed them in plain sight of the villagers. It became quickly clear to the Israeli leadership that the Arab armies were no match for the superior military, which, thanks to the Communist Party, was now securing advanced weapons, artillery, and tanks being delivered to them by the Soviet Union. So, Israel began to consider the occupation of the West Bank, the Golan Heights, and southern Lebanon. On May 24th, Ben-Gurion wrote in his diary, "We will establish a Christian state in Lebanon, the southern border of which will be the Litani River. We will break Transjordan, bomb Amman and destroy its army, and then Syria falls. And if Egypt will still continue to fight, we will bombard Port Said, Alexandria, and Cairo. This will be in revenge for what they did to our forefathers during biblical times." The Jordanians, however, were able to hold on to East Jerusalem and the West Bank of the Jordan River, while Egypt successfully held on to Gaza. And after a few short truces, Israel and the Arab nations signed an armistice, ending the conflict. The cleansing operations never stopped, and by the end of the war, Israel had expelled over 750,000 Palestinians from their homes. To ensure they wouldn't return, all Palestinian villages were demolished, and in an effort led by Joseph Weitz, Israel turned the ruins into forests and parks to ensure they would remain uninhabitable. This was the catastrophe, al-Nakba. Exactly as they had feared, the majority of Palestinians now lived in refugee camps in neighboring countries. Jordan annexed the West Bank and East Jerusalem in a move condemned by the Arab world, while Egypt took administration of the Gaza Strip, a territory now overcrowded with refugees. The few Palestinians that managed to remain in Israel would be subjected to heavy discrimination and abuse. The new Israeli government pardoned all terrorist activities and massacres committed by Israeli forces. Yitzhak Shamir, former leader of the terrorist organization Lehi, the same one that had sought an alliance with Nazi Germany, would later become Prime Minister of Israel. Menachem Begin, leader of the Irgun and responsible for the bombing of the King David Hotel, would also become Prime Minister of Israel. Despite the horror of the conflict, the struggle between Israelis and Palestinians was only just beginning.